This video is brought to you by Skillshare. Today, Democrats put even greater pressure on Joe Biden to drop out. Taiwan sees a record number of Chinese planes in its airspace, and Emmanuel Macron breaks his post-election silence. From TLDR News, this is your daily briefing for Thursday, the 11th of July, 2024. Having apparently seen off one of the latest attempts to get him to drop out, President Joe Biden's troubles are not over, as increasingly prominent figures urge Biden to withdraw from the presidential election over concerns about his age and health. Hollywood star and notable Democratic Party fundraiser George Clooney issued perhaps the most damaging call so far, writing an article in the New York Times titled, "I love Joe Biden, but we need a new nominee." This comes just weeks after Clooney held a $30 million fundraising event for the Biden campaign. But Clooney wrote that, "It's devastating to say it, but the Joe Biden I was with 3 weeks ago at the fundraiser was not the Joe big deal Biden of 2010. He wasn't even the Joe Biden of 2020. He was the same man we all witnessed at the debate," referring to the debate in which Biden made a number of verbal missteps and stumbles. Clooney's opinion piece was published on the same day that former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, a Democratic Party heavyweight, made comments that stopped short of endorsing Biden's re-election bid and have been seen as a veiled call for him to step aside. She said, "It's up to the president to decide if he's going to run. We're all encouraging him to make that decision because time is running short." Also, on that same day, Senator Peter Welch from Vermont became the first Democratic senator to openly call on Biden to withdraw for the, quote, good of the country. President Biden also faces the prospect of major donors walking away. One told the Financial Times that, as of today, it would be very difficult to raise major donor money for the president. It is so quickly unraveling that it's going to be extraordinarily difficult for him to stay in the race. Another said, 9-1 when I talk to the other donors, they're not planning on contributing because they're concerned about losing. But President Biden is remaining defiant, insisting that his poor debate performance was a one-off result of tiredness from travel, and he and his campaign have spent recent days attempting to allay concerns among Democratic office holders, donors, and supporters. He may have bought himself some breathing room, but with an upcoming NATO press conference and a sit-down interview with NBC News approaching on Monday, Biden's performance will be closely watched and could be make or break. There's more on the way, but remember to subscribe and ring the bell for more daily briefing tomorrow. Plus, if you want to support the channel like Karthik Jagadish, then consider joining the new TLDR membership program for just $1.99. Today, China has sent a record number of warplanes across the US-drawn boundary in the Taiwan Strait, after reports emerged that Taiwanese President Lai Ching-te is considering a trip abroad, which might include a stopover in the US. Some 56 planes reportedly crossed the median line earlier this morning, and whilst Beijing has ignored the median line since 1954, recent incursions have reduced Taiwan's reaction time to potential attacks. China responded similarly last year and held large military exercises after former President Tsai Ing-wen and met with then House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. The latest warplane flights add to the pressure campaign China has rolled out since the election victory in January of Lai, who Beijing accuses of pursuing independence. China has vowed to bring Taiwan under its control someday, by force if necessary. On July the 2nd, China seized a Taiwanese fishing boat for operating out of season. The two crew members are still in China. Now, these heightening tensions between China and Taiwan are concerning, as President Joe Biden has stated the US would aid Taiwan if invaded and has increased military support to deter such an attack. France's President Emmanuel Macron has broken his post-election silence, asking the political parties in the divided National Assembly to negotiate and reach a consensus before he appoints a new Prime Minister and government. France's snap legislative election last week delivered a victory, but far from a majority, for the hastily assembled left-wing New Popular Front alliance, while Macron's centrist alliance came second and the far-right National Rally came third. France, which doesn't really have a history of coalition politics, now faces an ideologically split assembly and no clear option for a governing coalition. Macron clearly favours some kind of moderate coalition spanning parties from centre-left to the Conservative Republicans. In a letter to the French, Macron called for dialogue and the building of a majority between all parties that, quote, identify with Republican institutions, rule of law, parliamentarianism, a pro-European stance, and French independence, which is his way of saying anyone but National Rally and the far-left Franzen bowed. This is easier said than done, though, as it would require splitting the new Popular Front, as well as bringing together parties with deep political divides. Meanwhile, others from Macron's alliance favour a minority government with the Conservative Republicans, something that would frustrate and possibly push out the president's more centre-left leading allies. As an interim, Prime Minister Gabriel Attal will remain in post, while France's political forces try to work out a way forward. For more on France's coalition options and its political gridlock, we have a video coming out soon over on the TLDR EU channel. Yesterday, a senior US official reported to the Washington Post that Israel and Hamas are on the verge of a major ceasefire agreement, brokered by the Biden administration. The report goes on to state that the framework has been agreed upon and that negotiations are now focused on how the agreement will be implemented. It would be a three-stage agreement, in which the first stage would involve a 6-week ceasefire where Hamas would release all hostages except healthy male soldiers, and Israel would release all hostages and withdraw its troops from the densely populated regions in Gaza. The second stage would be the release of the remaining Israeli male hostages and a full Israeli withdrawal from Gaza, and the final stage would be a multi-year reconstruction plan for the region. Also in the report is that neither Hamas nor Israel would rule Gaza. Instead, an interim government would be formed with security provided by a US-trained force backed by moderate Arab allies. The official deal, however, is not yet imminent, but it appears that significant progress has been made, and US officials hope that that trend holds. For President Biden, a ceasefire arrangement could not come sooner. It could give his re-election campaign a much-needed boost and provide pushback against those who question his fitness for office. More importantly, however, is the prospect that the devastated Gaza Strip could soon see peace after 9 months of brutal warfare that's killed tens of thousands. Time will tell if it comes to fruition, but this report is at least a positive sign. And finally, in some uplifting news, a Chinese pangolin has been born in Prague Zoo, the second born in Europe in less than 2 years, to the joy of zookeepers looking after the critically endangered mammal. The female pangolin was born on July the 1st, weighing just 141 grams. Chinese pangolins, which are hunted for their scales and meat, are difficult to breed in captivity, and the zoo's director said, "We certainly hoped that we'll have a baby born one day in the future, but absolutely nobody expected that we'll have 2 in a year and a half."
Running a profitable online news brand that gives away free content is a little tricky. So recently we launched an online store where you can purchase copies of our magazine, Too Long. The thing is, setting up an e-commerce business is also pretty tricky. But fortunately, when it comes to websites and e-commerce, Skillshare is there to help, with me taking their very useful course, Shopify Essentials for Web Developers, when setting up the store. That's because Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives, with thousands of classes led by industry experts across film, illustration, design, freelance, productivity, and more. That means that Skillshare can help take your career, skills, hobbies, passions, or side hustles to the next level. There's hundreds of career-focused classes. That's courses from how to start a business to maximizing your workflow or digital marketing. The best news is that the first 500 people to use our link in the description will receive a 1-month free trial to Skillshare. So get started today.